ever wanted to make a reference for one of your characters but just didn't know how or felt stuck? Well, I gotcha! There are 3 main components that go to make a good reference sheet. When people make a reference sheet, they tend to overcomplicate it a lot. The point of making a reference sheet is to have a reference and convey information of design and personality, not to tell an entire story and your whole lore. The design, expression, and key details are what you're gonna need. So let's start. First of all, with the design, when you're making a reference sheet, it's good to have the character's whole look in mind. If you have yet to draw your character or know how they look, you should probably start somewhere else before you go on to your reference sheet. When you have your sheet, you want consistency within the design so that you don't confuse the viewer. If you change up some of the details or the colors here and there, it kinda defeats the purpose of being a reference. Next with the design is coloring. I know that some of you are inclined to render the second you can, which I'm guilty of too, it's okay. But for reference sheets, try and keep an even lighting and simple shading. If you're like me and just need to render anyways, then, as fellow YouTuber HypoAnimations24 said on one of my streams the other day, you should always keep a color palette available next to your character. Go check them out, by the way. I'll link the channel in description. Once you've got that down, there are 3 important views to get of your character. If you're making a reference for general use, like art fight, I suggest that you have a full body, a side profile, and 1 close-up of their face in more detail. If you're making a reference sheet for an animated project or portfolio, however, you do probably want to include a full side view and a full back view as well, although if it's for professional work, it is a lot more case by case. Alright, step number 2 is to focus on your character's expressions. Reference sheets typically have a neutral resting face because you want to have people be able to imagine how they would look with other expressions but know how they look normally. However, having a neutral face with a slight frown versus a slight smirk can convey a lot to a viewer. Take a look at my art fight characters, for example. Each of them has a slightly different expression, however they all seem rather neutral, as you're not trying to make a fully done piece, you just want a reference for people to glance at, and if you can convey the vibe just through their resting face, then I think you've got it down. Alright, the final step of the main 3 is including some key details. This isn't a necessary step, but it is very helpful for having commissions done, especially of your characters. I have personally cut it out of my art fight references this year just for clarity's sake, but I do typically do this in most of my sheets. It does help, and I use it with my webtoons as well. If you're including key details like I've done here, then you do want to make them large enough so that people can see them and don't mix them up with anything else on the reference sheet, because when you put a background, things can get a little bit lost. If you're adding a background into your reference, I suggest that you go with something neutral, maybe like a little texture here and there, but try not to let your image get lost in anything. You just want people to see your character and you're not making a fully finished piece. Let's put these steps into practice really quick. Here is one reference sheet of my character Einar versus another one. The one on the right is clearly the better option because you can see the clear details and there's not as much that gets lost in information and such as the one on the left. Now that you have all of this in mind, I think you are ready! And if you're doing Art Fight 2025, I will see you in the fight. I'm Team Fossil, by the way.